One thing I like about this line is that it seems that all the Markscheids were related to each other, and I have a theory about that which I'm going to get to in just a little bit. Welcome to part 28 of this series where I talk about a specific family branch of mine, let you know what I know about them, what I don't know about them, and how I got to the conclusions that I did. And on this one we're going to be talking about my Markscheid family, which is a very, very interesting line. I'm really excited to talk about them for a number of reasons. For starters, this is a family branch that changed their last name to their mother's surname. So all the children of my third great grandfather, Hirsch Markscheid, actually took on their mother's last name, Hechler, when they came to America. So at least among that branch of my family, none of them took on that Markscheid family name, and the only reason I found out about it is from documents in the United States. Another interesting thing is I figured out most of the Markscheid family relationships using naming patterns alone, which is extremely rare, and you'll see why in just a little bit how I was able to use those naming patterns to my advantage despite not having any documents or nothing but one document for my third great grandparents. Now, my great-great-grandmother, Sarah Hechler, was born to Jutta Chaya Hechler and Hirsch Markscheid. And from living Hechler relatives, our family was able to get a good sense of who Sarah's siblings were, since many of them immigrated to America. All of them, in fact, except for the oldest sister, Sosie. Now, she's mentioned on a lot of different ship manifests, and she married a guy with the last name Dolberg and settled in the town of Tismentia, Ukraine. Sadly, she and her husband were murdered in the Holocaust, and very little is known about her life in Tismentia. However, I was able to find her 1879 birth record, and this is where the Markscheid family journey begins. Now, even though none of the records tell us what Hirsch Markscheid's parents' names were, there is something really interesting about what he named his kids. You see, his firstborn daughter was named Sosie, and his firstborn son was named Yassel. He also later on had a daughter with the interesting given name Maita. From records in the city of Obertyn, Ukraine, we can see that there indeed was a couple named Yassel Mordko Markscheid and Sosie. And Yassel's grandmother was named Maita. So usually if you just had one of these names, it wouldn't be super clear that there was a naming pattern going on here because, a lot of people lived in the towns of Kolomaya and Obertyn. But the fact that there were the firstborn children, as well as a relatively uncommon name of the grandmother, and all of these names were given to his kids, it seemed very, very likely that Yassel Mordko Markscheid was Hirsch's father. From what I was able to piece together, Yassel Mordko's parents were Joina Markscheid and Priva Tauba, born around the turn of the 19th century. Joina, if you haven't guessed already, is basically the name Yona, which is my name, making him one of two ancestors to have the Hebrew name Yona. The other, of course, being Ivan Jonas Cohn, my great-grandfather, the man who I was named after. And I talked about him a little bit in my Cohn episode. One thing I like about this line is that it seems that all the Markscheids were related to each other. And I have a theory about that, which I'm going to get to in just a little bit. But nevertheless, continuing on, Joina's parents were Mordko Markscheid and Maita. And I found that out from his death record. Mordko and Maita were born sometime in the 1700s. So here's where my theory lies, and it's a very, very speculative one. But from putting together lists of all the other Markscheids living in Obertyn, I was able to group them together into a few major groups, the biggest being headed by a guy, Srul Markscheid, most likely also born in the 1700s. And I noticed that a lot of the names kept popping up on both his branch of the family and mine, particularly the name David Baruch. that specific combination. And so it seemed pretty likely from both that and the fact that I had a couple of small DNA matches from his line that they were probably pretty close relatives. But my theory is that the last name Markscheid actually is derived from the name Mordechai or Mordko, who was my 6th great grandfather. And that's because Mark or Marcus is a very common secularized version of the name Mordechai. And this pops up on a lot of old Galician records where you'll see the names Marcus and Mordko interchanged. So what's possible is that Mordko Markscheid may have been the progenitor of the Markscheid family. Mark from Markscheid potentially referring to the name Marcus. And if this is the case, then there's probably a good chance that Israel or Sruel was either his son or maybe a brother of his. But the cool thing about the Markscheid family is that all of them appear to be related, which makes it kind of a fun branch to research because, you know, it's more about figuring out where in the puzzle they fit rather than even figuring out if they fit in the puzzle in the first place. So thank you so much for watching this. We're really getting down to the wire now. We only have 2 more of these Meet My Family episodes left. So thank you for sticking with me. Make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, follow me on social media. I've included links down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.